welcome to Politics in the Pub, one of the few last forms of resistance to the Abbott culture. And in some ways that's what we're going to be hearing about tonight, which is about can all those right-wingers by the bar just tone it down a bit. We're going to be talking about independent journalism and the role of the functions of social media. My two good friends sitting at the table include Wendy Bacon, who was a pretty distinguished journalist before she went into the much more cosy atmosphere, incredibly well-funded and protected by successive federal governments of academia, where Wendy was Professor of Journalism in the Centre for Independent Journalism at UTS. And Chris Graham is the formidable, in my view, editor of the one journal that's taken a lot of risks in the past 12 months. Risks because it likes going to fight actions in federal courts at no cost. Chris, apart from having an impressive journalistic career, told me that he once worked for Westpac but was sacked. So that seems to be an incredibly important qualification to be the editor of a journal like New Matilda. So Chris has come all the way up from Durris Lakes to be here tonight. It's his first appearance at Politics in the Pub, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last. Please welcome Chris Graham.
Thank you, Stuart. And speaking of defamation, I didn't tell you I was sacked. Oh, sorry. I probably did say that. Well, I actually, technically, I wasn't sacked. I was asked to leave. There's a significant difference. I hold the distinction. I lost $80 million as tax money. Only for 2 days they recovered it. But I put it in the wrong bank account, basically. It was supposed to go... Your own? No, I wish I'd put it in my own, because the interest alone on that overnight...
For the AWU, was it?
Yes, and if Mr. Shorten is in the audience, he'll know what I'm talking about. I put it in the wrong account, and they had to pay interest on it for 48 hours. And there was another incident around the same time involving $20 million. So they called me into their office and asked if I was interested in perhaps finding somewhere else to work, which I did. And ironically, the very next place I went to work was the Sydney Morning Herald as a copy boy, which was the start of my, I would suggest illustrious, but others would not agree, career in the media. So I just wanted to clear up that horrible defamation that Stuart will have to, you'll be hearing from my lawyers on Monday. And on that front, they've actually, they've got time on their hands now, because today, officially today, we are, for the first time in, well, almost 12 months, we are lawsuit free. Officially today, we finalised the last issue that we have going. It's worth more than applause, I can tell you. I'm sticking around after Politics in the Pub to celebrate. And look, Stuart also mentioned independent media, and that Politics in the Pub is the sort of last place that we resist the Abbott government. Wendy was more the focus of this particular article in The Australian than I. They threw me in, I think, because they felt they had to, but they were really after Wendy. Speaking of resistance to the Abbott government, you may have seen the front page of The Australian last year, where Wendy was accused of being involved in a plot to bring down the Prime Minister, on the front page of the Saturday edition of The Australian. And the beautiful irony of that story is that it's 100% true. Wendy was involved and is involved and continues to be involved in multiple plots to bring down the Australian Prime Minister. And in Wendy's defence, though, I don't think it particularly matters to Wendy whether it's Tony Abbott, Kevin Rudd or Julia Gillard. She'll always be involved in the plot to bring down the Prime Minister, and I'll always be along for the ride. So, I think we're talking about Now, we're talking about independent media and social media, or social media's effect on independent media?
Sure, really, the merits of social media versus...
The merits of social media versus
versus
media.
the mainstream, really.
That's good, because that's what all my notes refer to, so...
Oh, good.
we should get a lot of fun.
Good guess.
For those who don't know, New Matilda, I took New Matilda over in May last year. Ironically, I'd come to New Matilda from Tracker magazine, which is an Aboriginal Affairs, or was an Aboriginal Affairs publication owned by the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council, and it had been closed down. Actually, New Matilda broke the story. It was closed down because I wrote a feature in October 2013, shortly after the last federal election, where we analysed the voting trends of 26,000 Aboriginal people. And those voting trends, you won't be particularly surprised to learn, showed an overwhelming dislike for the Abbott government. And the feature was published on the front page of Tracker. The New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council is ultimately an act of the New South Wales Parliament. The New South Wales government was a Liberal government, and they decided they didn't much like the sort of coverage they were getting in Tracker magazine, and essentially pressured the Land Council to close the publication down. So I had nothing to do, literally, and New Matilda came up, so I jumped on board. And I've been there ever since. It's not my first crack at independent media. It's certainly my first crack at independent mainstream media. I started my career as a copy boy at the Sydney Morning Herald, just down the road, when I was 15. But most of my time has been spent reporting on Aboriginal affairs, again in independent media. So this is my first stint with mainstream media. And I must admit to being, I'm relatively new to online media. Apparently, the internet's been around for quite some time. I never used it much for work, other than for research. It certainly changed the way we research. But when I came to New Matilda, I was still an old-style print journalist. I've been, as I said, a print journalist since the age of 15. I'm now in my early 20s. And
That's libelous too.
yeah, that is libelous. It's not defamatory though, Stuart. There's a difference. I'm 43 now, so all I've ever done, literally, is print media journalism. And the challenges of online journalism, I've found pretty extreme. The lawsuit that I mentioned or referenced just earlier, actually, if you've been on the New Matilda site recently, you'll have seen an apology printed on the homepage for the last 30 days. It's an apology for a series of readers' comments that appeared on an article that Wendy mostly wrote and I went along for the ride on. A group of our readers very, very badly defamed some people involved in the article. And that was basically within my first week at New Matilda. We got a lawsuit based on readers' comments posted on a story, and it's taken us a year to resolve that issue. So that was my kind of baptism of fire to mainstream online media, and I can tell you it hasn't got any easier in the last year. If you're familiar with the New Matilda website, you'll probably be familiar with the ongoing debate about my policing of the comments section of New Matilda. It's become, I like to think of myself as a benevolent dictator when I go through the comments section. I've got, or I've had mounting legal bills to help focus my mind on what I think is appropriate in the comments section and what isn't. But that's basically how I started in mainstream online media, was with a bloody big defamation action based on readers' comments on a story. The other great challenge that we face is how does journalism, particularly independent journalism, interact with social media? And for those of you who, are many people here active on social media? Just a show of hands. Oh, there you go. All right. Yeah, look, I have mixed views about social media. I think as a journalist it's a fantastic platform to get a story out. It has a lot of great strengths, but you know, some of those strengths include the capacity to share stories and to make a story go viral and to reach a market that you might not otherwise have reached. With social media now, when we post a new Matilda story, we don't just reach the people who like new Matilda on our Facebook page, for example. We also reach their friends, and then we reach their friends of their friends, and if we're prepared to spend the money with Facebook, we reach even more people. And that's one of the huge advantages of online social media, is the capacity to target specific reporting to specific people. And to give you an example, typically if we wrote a story that we thought was worthy of a broader audience than the average New Matilda audience, we would advertise that story via Facebook. We do it probably 3 or 4 times a month. I don't know how much you know about the capacity to target people in an advertising sense on Facebook, but I can basically tell Facebook that I want to spend $200 in 24 hours pitching the story to people who've expressed an interest in, if it was a story about Aboriginal affairs, I might say if they've liked the movie Rabbit Proof Fence, if they've ever liked a page related to First Nations content, I can target it that specifically, and we would frequently target stories to people who vote Greens. We would target stories to people who vote Liberal, primarily just to piss them off and increase traffic to the website, and of course to people who vote Labor. So the capacity to target people via social media is extraordinary, and coming from the old print media background and what they used to call the rivers of gold, which was the classified advertising that filled the Saturday Herald, for example, that market has essentially collapsed and it's been replaced by the online advertising market. But all online publishers, myself included, and the Sydney Morning Herald's share price is a testament to this. They'll all tell you that the advertising market hasn't followed suit. The journalism has gone online, but the advertising didn't follow. The advertising has gone to places like Facebook, who have the capacity to target things very, very, very specifically. Which leads to the really bad part about social media and the threat that it poses to particularly organisations like New Matilda. In the old days, Wendy and I would write a story and it would go to the presses, and then it would go to a newsagent, and a newsagent was bound by an agreement to deliver that paper to anybody in their particular region who said they wanted to receive it. Nowadays, the system of information delivery in newspapers is controlled largely by, predominantly by Facebook, but also by organisations like Twitter and other social media platforms. They have no agreement whatsoever with media organisations, certainly not media organisations of our size. And there's no rules governing how Facebook deliver that content and what Facebook must do to ensure that that content's delivered equitably and fairly. And if you've read a little bit about social media, you'll know that Facebook actually writes its own algorithms for how it shares particular content based on what is in the story. If I use profanity in a story on Facebook, in a story on New Matilda, and I try to share it on Facebook, and for those who know my writing, I am occasionally prone to using profanity, there's a pretty good chance that story won't get shared on Facebook. That Facebook will block attempts for that story to go viral. It will reduce the number of people's walls that that story appears in. And I won't even necessarily know that's happening. We've got a function on our website, on our Facebook page, where if you swear, you can still see your comment and you can swear to your heart's content. But what you're not aware of is that nobody else can see your comment other than the New Matilda page administrators. So Facebook has its own rules and its own expectations about what constitutes valuable news and what should and shouldn't be shared to a broader audience. And that is hugely problematic because Facebook, there's no regulation about what Facebook does. Facebook is a corporate entity in America. It can do whatever it likes, and it's spent a great deal of money researching how to influence the moods of its users, and it's literally researching how to make you feel happier about yourself, with a particular emphasis on you buying products that are advertised on Facebook. That's obviously a major problem for independent media, and it's a major problem for all media, but you might have heard recently that the New York Times, for example, has negotiated a deal with Facebook where they're publishing literally straight through Facebook, not just through the New York Times, but publishing through Facebook. New York Times has a capacity to negotiate that sort of deal with one of the richest men on earth. I'm not one of the richest men on earth. Last time the tax office notified me, and I don't have any capacity to negotiate that sort of deal with Facebook. The other problem for us, and this is particularly a problem for journalists like Wendy Bacon, who write stories that buck the mainstream line, and New Matilda is a good example of a newspaper that doesn't follow a particular mainstream agenda. If Facebook makes its own decision that New Matilda's reporting is not something that it particularly likes or particularly supports, they can turn us off tomorrow. And to give you an example of how much of our traffic now comes through Facebook, it's between 70 and 80%, and it's growing every few months. In the not too distant future, over 80% of our traffic on New Matilda will come via social media, either Facebook or Twitter, with no agreement at all with those organisations about how our content, or even if our content, should be shared. So the challenges for independent media are quite extreme. We have lost absolute control of the method of delivery of our news, and it is now in the hands of a massive corporation in the United States that has no commitment to truth or journalism. It has a commitment to profit through social media. That's its sole goal. So the impact on independent media, I think, is potentially enormous. The one way around that, of course, as I mentioned, is we will pay Facebook to promote our stories. Now, if you're familiar with New Matilda and the multiple begging emails that we send out in the course of a month asking you to part with your money to enable us to do what we do, we don't have a particularly big budget, but we spend, or last month we spent $1,200 on Facebook advertising, which that would employ a young student journalist for a month. We have to spend the money on Facebook because I don't have any proof yet, but I do know that if we aren't spending money advertising our stories on Facebook, our traffic seems to drop quite substantially, or our shares on Facebook drop quite substantially, and I will never know what the algorithm is that decides that, because it's a corporate secret. So how we get around it, unfortunately, it's the issue that most occupies my mind when I think about the future of New Matilda, because I don't have any answers. There really is no way for us to break that model unless a new form of social media takes over, one that is more popular than Facebook, and one that doesn't base its delivery method on secret algorithms that are designed to increase their own profit. There is a new social media group started up called Ideas, which is very open. Well, it's about open, transparent internet activity. But Facebook today is by far the largest social media outlet that there is, and these smaller competitors will essentially face the same struggle that New Matilda faces against mainstream publications. So the good news is we're doing it right for now. We're humming along, and New Matilda's traffic's grown exponentially in the last year. We're 300% up today on what we were at this point last year, and that's a great result. But the bad news is if Facebook turn off the tap for whatever reason, we're not even going to know about it. And well, we're going to know about it when the traffic dies, but we're not going to know why, and there's not really going to be any way we can fix it. So, like many of the people in the audience, I actually quite enjoy social media. I think it's a bit of a megaphone, and it's designed to amplify the views that you agree with to improve your mood, hopefully to make you buy more stuff. But I do genuinely like the interaction of Facebook, but I can tell you as a publisher, it is potentially an enormous risk to independent journalism. And if anybody has any solutions in the questions and answer section, I'd love to hear about it. But as we stand today, we're basically at the mercy of Mark Zuckerberg. So, sorry to end on that depressing note, because he's not a particularly nice man, but that's the truth.